Joe Gibbs denied the opportunity for Kyle Busch to run the Indy 500 back in 2017, and Harrison Burton will join Brooklyn Racing at the All-Star Race. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start by talking about Kyle Larson. As reported by NASCAR Insights on Sunday evening, that with Kansas marked the 32nd race where Kyle Larson led at least 100 laps in an event. In the most recent 16 races that he's led over 100 laps, Kyle Larson has won 12 out of those 16 races. The other 16, he only won 3 of those. Now, most of those in the first 16 were when he drove for Chip Ganassi Racing, but also was back in 2021 when he had a lot of bad luck. I think about Atlanta in 2021, a race where he led almost the whole entire event, but Ryan Blaney took the win from him. Kyle Larson, we know, is one of the most dominant drivers in NASCAR currently at the moment. He, of course, reached 10,000 laps led in NASCAR Cup competition, and it's very likely that by the end of his career, he is going to have 50 of these races where he leads at least 1,100 laps in each event, which is a big deal. You think about the Bristol races, you think about some of those races at like Atlanta, not Atlanta, but races like at Kansas, for example. He continues to dominate in the sport. Congrats, Kyle Larson, on continuing to break records and continuing to win races in the sport. It's a big deal for him to continue dominating the way he has won in the sport, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the All-Star Race. Now, it was reported by NASCAR yesterday that the top 5 fan vote has been officially revealed for the top 5 fan vote getters currently at the moment. So the 5 drivers that are eligible for the fan vote are Shane Van Gisbergen, Noah Gragson, Carson Osbar, Ryan Preece, and Bubba Wallace. Some of those don't surprise me. Noah Gragson does have a lot of fans, and a lot of people do vote for Noah Gragson. He got in last year to the All-Star Race because of the fan vote. Shane Van Gisbergen also has a lot of fans. SVG is very popular in Australia, and a lot of people have come to NASCAR recently because of Shane Van Gisbergen. And then Bubba Wallace also got a lot of fans. Bubba Wallace is one of the most popular drivers in NASCAR. Unpopular for some people, but I think Bubba is maybe one to watch here that I think could win. I think Bubba could honestly win the All-Star Open to get in. So I think right now I think the person who might likely get it is SVG. So I don't think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be a factor to win the Open. So I think for him, it's going to be on the vote. I think same thing for Hocevar, and I think same thing for Preece as well currently at the moment. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, though, in regards to that. But I'm glad to see the top 5 have been selected, and it's not shocking to see that these are the 5 people that have been chosen for them. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chase Elliott. As it was reported by Trey Ryan, aka NASCAR Insights, yesterday, that Chase Elliott has had 12 top 20 finishes to start 2025 for the 3rd year in a row. He is the first driver in NASCAR Cup history to accomplish this. Chase Elliott may not have won a lot of races in recent years, only winning 1 race since 2022, that being at Texas in 2024. But Chase Elliott has been extremely consistent. And the fact he's done this number is absolutely incredible. Chase Elliott is one of the most talented drivers in the field. I get he's not been as good in next gen era. I think a lot of us fans of Chase do want to see him go out there and pick up victories. But at the same time, I think it's still impressive to see that Chase continues to put up these consistent numbers. He's been really strong to start the year. I don't think there's any more driver that's more consistent. I know Larson's had more consistency this year, but Chase Elliott this year has been really strong and super competitive on the track. You just got to get that win a little more speed, but I think it's impressive that Chase continues to have consistent numbers in the NASCAR Cup Series. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chad Finchum. As it was announced earlier today that Chad Finchum will drive the number 66 for Garage 66 this week at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star Race, also known as the All-Star Open, and also at National Super Speedway at the end of this month. Chad Finchum's already made a start so far this year for Garage 66, which is MBM Motorsports, when he raced with them at Texas Motor Speedway, and he unfortunately got caught up in a crash near the end of the event. I think Chad Finchum is a talented driver, but he's not in the fastest equipment. We've seen that equipment struggle with guys like Casey Mears this year, and Chandler Smith also struggled to even make the Daytona 500, which unfortunately failed to qualify for that event. They were going to put Mike Wallace behind the wheel, and that, of course, fell through for reasons behind the scenes. I hope Chad can run really well. Of course, he's not eligible for the fan vote, unfortunately, not in the top 5 currently at the moment. I think it's going to be tough for him to be a major factor. I don't think he's going to be a major factor in any of these races, but it's awesome to see Chad Finchum back in the series racing for Garage 66. I hope he can do a really good job and be really competitive in the upcoming events. Now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alon Day. As it was announced early this morning that Alon Day will drive the number 25 for Venturini Motorsports for 3 races in ARCA and ARCA West in 2025. He'll compete at Lime Rock Park at the end of June. Then he's going to race in the ARCA West race at Sonoma Raceway in July. And then finally his last race will be at Watkins Glen. Alon, of course, has been a driver who's won the NASCAR Euro Series Championship, has also made some select starts in recent years in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He did run the Chicago Street Course, but unfortunately failed to qualify to get into that event. Alon is a very talented race car driver, is also a really strong road course racer as well. And he's getting a great opportunity with Venturini Motorsports. Now, granted, I think Brent Cruz is going to be in that event, so Brent is for sure going to be the favorite to win some of those races, but I think Alon will be someone to watch out for sure. Venturini's been up and down at times in recent years, but I think this is a great opportunity nonetheless, and I'm glad to see he's getting the chance and opportunity to race for Venturini. I think he's going to be a pretty big factor, and I think will be a pretty strong contender definitely with Venturini Motorsports in these upcoming events. Looking forward to see what it can do with Venturini Motorsports in their final year being an organization. We'll see what it can do in 2025. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brad Perez. As it was announced yesterday that Brad Perez will drive the 45 for Alpha Prime Racing next weekend at Charlotte. This is going to be the 4th or 5th scheduled start for Brad Perez with this team. I don't believe this is one of the original races that Brad had on his schedule. I think Brad has honestly been solid so far with this equipment. I think Alpha Prime is a team that's shown some improvement in 2025. We've seen Parker Reznov have some really competitive speed. He nearly won the pole, I believe, at Bristol, if I'm not mistaken, and has been competitive at times throughout the year. And Brendan Poole is in the top 20 in points currently at the moment. I look for Brad Perez to be a contender for a top 25. When we get to Charlotte, there's a lot of really big competition. We're hearing rumors maybe Austin Dillon might run the Xfinity Series race at Charlotte, but I think that he's going to be very fast, and I do think he'll be pretty strong and really, really competitive. So we'll see what Brad Perez can do, and we'll see if he can be a factor next week in Charlotte. I'm excited to see how he does, and I'm excited to see if he can be a major contender for sure in a week or so at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Amazon Prime. Now on Sunday, this was posted by Steve Letarte on his Instagram page, but you also probably been seeing this from Amazon Prime as well, as they've already begun the rehearsals for their part of the broadcast. Remember, Amazon Prime has been showing all the qualifying sessions so far this year, but they, of course, will be starting to take over in about a week from now. This is the final broadcast for Fox on the Cup side in 2025. Then the next 5 Cup Series races, that being the Coca-Cola 600, Nashville, Michigan, Mexico City, and Pocono will all be on Amazon. You're going to have Adam Alexander, you're going to have Steve Letarte, and Dale Jr. in the booth. I'm excited for Amazon to come in. I'm very intrigued to see how they're going to do, and we'll talk about some of the stuff they're working on behind the scenes currently at the moment here in just a short little bit. But I love what I've been hearing about the future of this. I think there's a lot of good things that can come from something like Amazon Prime, and I think, especially with some of the stuff they're working on, I think there's a lot of excitement around the Amazon Prime broadcast going into this year. Plus, I think Adam Alexander has been a really solid lead broadcaster, especially for the Xfinity Series, and I do think there's a lot of things you could definitely be really happy about in regards to Amazon. I know there's some things many disagree with me on like that, but I think it's pretty cool that they're getting rehearsed up and getting ready for the broadcast. I'm looking forward to the Amazon Prime broadcast that are going to be happening really soon. Looking forward to that coming up really, really soon. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Cars Tour on Fox. As it was announced on Monday that the Cars Tour on Fox broadcast has been officially announced for this Thursday. Remember, the Cars Tour will be broadcasting the late model stock championship race that will take place in North Wilkesboro on Thursday. So the people that are going to be in the booth are Eric Brennan, Kevin Harvick, and Dale Jr. And on pit road, it is going to be Blake McCandless and Caitlin Vincey. Now, Blake McCandless and Eric Brennan always call the Cars Tour events. It's interesting that Blake is not going to be in the booth, but he's going to be doing some stuff on pit road. These two have worked together very, very well on the Cars Tour broadcast, and I think they both do a great job. I'm also excited to see Caitlin Vincey doing pit road stuff. She's been around for many, many years. She, of course, has been part of the Fox broadcast. She did some pit road reporting, I believe, at Circuit Americas earlier this year. And then, of course, you have the other two people in the booth, Kevin Harvick and Dale Jr. I think this trio, honestly, could be really fun. Dale Jr. has been so fun to listen to for many, many years on broadcast, and I generally do believe that Dale Jr. and Eric Brennan especially are all going to do well. And I've said this for the longest time as well. But Eric Brennan absolutely should be a full-time commentator once Mike Joy retires. He, in my opinion, we've listened to him call some of these ARCA races, and I think he generally does a fantastic and exceptional job as a lead broadcaster. And I think if Fox was smart, instead of having Jamie Little be the lead broadcaster, Eric needs to be the one taking over. In fact, can we please get him to be the lead broadcaster for the Truck Series broadcast? I think a lot of people will be really, really happy about that. But I think this is a really strong lineup for Thursday, and I do think it's going to be one of the best broadcasts we've seen on Fox this year so far. So I'm excited to see how they're going to do. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm glad to see they've got a really strong broadcast lineup for this year when we do go to the Car Store event on Thursday or Friday night. Looking forward to the event that's taking place. It's also pretty exciting that the Car Store is going to be on FS1, but I think it's a bigger deal to see that their Car Store will be on that network. I think it's going to be big to grow the Car Store going forward, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Sammy Smith. As it was confirmed yesterday that Sammy Smith will drive the 7 truck for Spire Motorsports this weekend at North Wilkesboro. This is going to be the second scheduled start that Sammy Smith has had in the Craftsman Truck Series this year. He raced at Rockingham Speedway, and if I'm not mistaken, he actually had a pretty solid run in that event. I believe ran inside the top 5 and top 10 throughout a majority of this race. I do think Sammy Smith will be a pretty big factor because the 7 truck has already won this year so far. It won with Carson Hocevar last week at Kansas, and Kyle Busch, who we'll talk about here in just a second, it won with Kyle Busch behind the wheel as well. I do think Sammy Smith will be one of the favorites going into this race. Of course, his experience at tracks like this, being one of the best short track racers in the field, I think is going to play a major crucial role in him having a great chance and opportunity to definitely go to victory lane. So we'll see how he can end up doing and see if he can be a major factor when we head to North Wilkesboro. But like I said, I think especially with the competition and caliber field we are going to have in North Wilkesboro for the truck event, along with the Cup race for the All-Star race as well, I think Sammy will do a really awesome job, and I'm looking forward to see how he can do behind the wheel. I think this is going to be probably his last scheduled start of 2025. But I do think he's done a decent job in trucks. I think so far in Xfinity 2, he's done a really good job. So I do expect him to be a pretty big factor. We'll see what Sammy Smith can do when we go to North Wilkesboro this weekend with the Spire Motorsports team and organization. Excited to see what it can do this week, and I think we'll have a good chance to go to victory lane. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Amazon Prime. As was reported by Adam Stern last night, that according to him, Amazon Prime says that it is nearly sold out of advertising inventory for its 5 NASCAR races in 2025, and appears to hint that it will run a double box format instead of full screen commercials for every single race. This is a really huge deal. We've been starting to see this come up a little bit more. We've been seeing it, of course, in most of the Xfinity Series broadcasts this year with the CW. And now, of course, it looks like every single Amazon race will be there. Now, of course, Amazon is not going to be on TV at all. Well, it will be on TV, but it won't be on any of like these cable ads. It, of course, is a streaming platform. And NASCAR Productions also, if I'm not mistaken, will have full control of these broadcasts. And if they're like anything that the CW has shown, I got to say, I'm really excited about it. And it sounds like from what Dale Jr. has said as well, there's a lot of really intriguing and really fun stuff that is going to be coming on these Amazon broadcasts for this year. And I do think that there's a lot of things you can be very excited about with this. You've got a really strong broadcast lineup in the booth. You've also got a really strong pit road group over there. You're going to have Kim Kuhn. You're going to have Marty Snyder on pit road and Trevor Bayne as well. And then, of course, in the pre-race show, you're going to have Carl Edwards coming back. You got Daniel Trotta. And you're also going to have Corey LaJoie doing the pre-race and post-race show as well. Which it sounds like from what we've heard, the post-race show are going to be a lot longer than they've been, which is something that definitely needs to happen. Overall, I'm super excited about this. I think that Amazon has a lot of really good things going for it currently at the moment. And I just love hearing the fact that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this going forward. Because again, I've said this for a while. We do not need a massive amount of pre-race. We need like 10 to 15 minutes to build into the broadcast. You need a lot more post-race after the race concludes. I think also the fact there's not going to be any full-screen commercials for those races, I think is a major, major deal. And I also think it's a major, major win for the sport as well. So I think that's also extremely exciting. And I think it's pretty cool nonetheless to see that we're not going to have to deal with a lot of full-screen ads because, again, it's on a streaming platform. But I think this is definitely a big win for the sport. Pretty exciting nonetheless to see that Amazon Prime is doing something that the fans have asked for and not showing a lot of full-screen ads going forward, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Christopher Bell. As we talked about this on the channel earlier today, but it was announced earlier today that Christopher Bell will drive the 24 car for Sam Hunt Racing at Mexico City. He is the second confirmed Cup Series driver that will be running the race. We all know that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to drive the number 9 for Junior Motorsports in the event. This is also going to be the first time that Christopher Bell is competing in the Xfinity Series for a team not named Joe Gibbs Racing. This also will be the second start that Christopher Bell has had in 2025. He, of course, competed for Joe Gibbs Racing at Darlington earlier this year. He showed a lot of speed early in the event, but he had tire troubles near the end, had contact with Ross Chastain, was not very happy with Ross Chastain after the race concluded. But Christopher Bell is really strong in Xfinity competition. And he's going to a team that, while they're not the top-level team in the Toyota pipeline, they're the second-best team. And say what you want to say about Sam Hunt Racing, they've had some decent speed this year in the Xfinity Series. Dean Thompson has shown some really good speed in that 26 machine from time to time. And also Corey Heim has showed out in the Xfinity Series as well. Now, what are my expectations for Bell in this race? I do think Christopher Bell is going to have an outside chance and opportunity to win. The thing I'm a little worried about for Bell having a chance to win is you're going to have a lot of really good caliber of competition. You're going to have Shane Van Gisbergen. You're going to have Connor Zilch, who's one of the best road course racers. You're going to have Carson Quaffle. You're going to have Justin Allgaier. You're probably going to have other Cup guys. We haven't heard if Hendrick's going to run the car in the Xfinity event, but I would have to think they might run a car for Kyle Larson or someone like that, or a Chase Elliott perhaps, who's one of the best road course racers in the field. I would certainly think there's also a chance and possibility that we might see RCR run a third car. We know that they're talking about running more. Maybe they get Kyle Busch behind the wheel, considering Kyle Busch does have prior experience at this track. But I do got to say, it's really exciting to see that Bell's not going to the top-level team and is going to one of the smaller teams in the series. Well, not small teams, but one of the teams that's not as strong in the series. So I'm very intrigued to see how he's going to do. I'm definitely excited about something like this, and I'm looking forward to see Bell compete in the Xfinity Series. Again, we have a lot of people don't want Cup guys running. It's fine and understandable, but I think sometimes having Cup guys run the series is honestly not the worst thing in my opinion. So I'm excited about this nonetheless, and glad to see that Christopher Bell will get the chance and opportunity. So I do think he's got a good chance and opportunity to go to win. We'll see what it can do at Mexico City in about a month from now. I'm excited for the race. I'm excited to see some Cup guys run that event. Looking forward to it. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch. As it was officially confirmed yesterday that Kyle Busch will drive the 07 truck for Spire Motorsports this weekend at North Wilkesboro. This is going to be the second start that Kyle Busch will make of 5 starts in 2025, and this will be the first time he's not driving a 7 truck. Kyle Busch, of course, ran the 7 truck at Atlanta Motor Speedway earlier this year. He dominated that race, led the most laps, and he picked up a dominating win in the event, picking up, I think, it's like a 65th or 70th career win at this point. This year's 7 truck has already gone to victory lane this year as well. It won with Kyle Larson at Homestead Miami Speedway. And I think Spire, well, their drivers that are full-time like Raj Griffin, Andres Perez, have not been as consistently up front. I do think that Kyle Busch will be one of the favorites, considering, one, he has a lot of experience at this track, especially the last couple of years. I think that experience is going to come into play, but also, I don't think there's a mass amount of competition in the series as much as you have in the Cup Series, in the Xfinity Series. I do think Corey Heim is going to be one of the favorites, and you're certainly going to have some really strong competition running, but I do think Kyle Busch is a favorite going into this race, and I think it's very likely he'll pick up his second Truck Series win of the year. He's en route to trying to get 100 wins in the Truck Series. I think down the road he's going to be full-time in this series. We'll talk about that here in the upcoming video soon. But I do think overall he is going to be one of the favorites. Again, he's been really strong in the series. He's not been as strong in the Cup Series, but I think certainly in the Xfinity Series he's been really good. In Truck Series too, he's always good in this series. He's the winningest driver in there. And again, I do think it's very likely he will reach 100 wins in the Truck Series in the not-so-distant future. So I'm excited to see him back behind the wheel. Looking forward to see what it can do. And we'll see if Kyle Busch can be a major factor in series contender to go to victory lane. Again, I think he's a favorite to win. I could be proven wrong and he isn't the favorite. But I think especially with the lack of strong competition, I think he will be the favorite to definitely go to victory lane at North Wilkesboro with Spire Motorsports in the Craftsman Truck Series. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Front Row Motorsports. As it was confirmed by Bob Pockrass on Monday that Front Row Motorsports will not appeal Layne Riggs' disqualification from Kansas Speedway. Let's go back to a couple days ago. Layne Riggs, of course, is battling for the win really hard against Carson Hocevar in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race and came very close to picking up the win, crossing the line in second. He had contact with Carson Hocevar, and it looked like we were going to be talking about one of the most impressive finishes from that race. Instead, it was confirmed about 2.5 hours after the race had concluded that Layne Riggs had been disqualified for the second time in his career. This is not the first time Layne Riggs had been disqualified. Going back to last year at Atlanta Motor Speedway, I think it was something very similar to what he got disqualified for, and he got disqualified in that event despite the fact I think he fell out of the race early. He lost an opportunity to get points from that race. That dropped Layne Riggs from being around 5th or 6th in the standings down to 9th in the points and not too far above the cutoff line currently at the moment. Now, I think the reason they did not appeal disqualification is because they did not go to victory lane, and it seems like it's something that probably could be sped up. There have been so many issues with disqualifications in 2025. We have seen it in the Craftsman Truck Series this year multiple times. Of course, we saw it with Parker Clearman, who we all thought was originally the winner of the Truck Series race there. They, of course, appealed it, and they lost, and Corey Haim was given the win. We seen quite a few in the Xfinity Series this year. Jesse Love, the original winner from Rockingham, he got disqualified. Sammy Smith won. Of course, they appealed the disqualification, but they lost their appeal, and the win was given over to them. RCR obviously wrote one of their interesting statements they always write when they lose their appeals, but I'm not surprised seeing them lose it. And you think about the Cup Series this year. We've seen a bunch of them. We saw it at Talladega, Ryan Preece and Joey Logano. Then going back to last year, Alex Bowman, who would have made the round of 8 had it not been for disqualification. He got disqualified at the Roval, and unfortunately they went ahead and they didn't appeal it, unfortunately, because I think there was weight in the car. We've also saw Eric Jones get disqualified. And I think you're going to be seeing more and more of these come up. I just wish we could go like 5 or 6 weeks without disqualifications, because it seems like it's something really frustrating that it's becoming a week-by-week thing where we are having disqualifications in NASCAR, whether it's the Truck Series, whether it's the Xfinity Series, or whether it's the Cup Series. It doesn't matter. We're seeing a ton of disqualifications in NASCAR currently at the moment. And I think it's a lot of the sloppiness. I also think it's the team kind of bending the rules a little bit and knowing they probably can get away with a little bit more of these rules. I don't think that everyone disagrees with me on that, but still, I do think that there's definitely something going on that front as well. To me, I think there's a lot of cleaning up that definitely needs to be done in the sport, and I think that some of these teams and people involved need to clean up some of the habits, because I think that's why we're seeing more of these issues come up, it seems like, on a week-by-week basis. Nonetheless, it is certainly interesting for sure, and interesting to see that they're not appealing it, again, because I don't think they won the race. That's why they didn't appeal it, but I think it's also disappointing this is becoming a very consistent thing on a week-by-week basis, seems like. It's kind of frustrating. It's good views for me, but at the same time, I think for fans of the sport, it's frustrating that you leave the track, you think you know the winner, turns out a couple hours later, you don't know the winner, and I think that's a frustrating aspect of the sport, and I think you're going to see more of these happen as the season progresses and goes on, as we do get closer to the NASCAR playoffs. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Harrison Burton. As it was confirmed yesterday by Ware Racing, the Harrison Burton will be driving the number 51 for Ware Racing this weekend at North Wilkesboro. Now, Harrison Burton is making his first Cup Series start of 2025, and the first start he's made in the NASCAR Cup Series since he moved back down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series to drive full-time for AM Racing. Now, why is Harrison Burton driving number 51 for Ware Racing this weekend? Well, a big reason for that is because Harrison Burton last year picked up a win at Daytona International Speedway driving a 21 car for the Wood Brothers. Now, we all know that Harrison Burton was really, really bad in that number 21 machine for the 3 years he ran in the NASCAR Cup Series. In 2022, 2023, and 2024, he did not run very well and was kicked out of the ride at the end of the year and went back down to Xfinity. But he did have one really big important race, and that was that win at Daytona where he got himself into the playoffs. If you win a race in the prior year, a team will likely give you a chance and opportunity to get behind the wheel. And because Harrison's part of the Ford program and Ware does have a full-time charter car ready to go, where the other driver doesn't have to qualify their way in, plus the car is charter for the year, that is a lot of money going toward the team. For Harrison, this is a fantastic opportunity. I think Harrison Burton so far this year in 2025, in all honesty, has been doing a lot better than I think people give him credit for. I know he wasn't that great in the Cup Series. I know he hasn't been as strong in Cup competition. But you look at his run in the Xfinity Series. You go back to last year of Hailie Deegan. That number 51 car, or that number 15 or 25 car last year was atrocious. Hailie Deegan completely struggled in that car, but it wasn't just her. It was the all-around team and organization. The crew chief got fired halfway through the year, and they were just scrambling, and the crew chief had to get told by Joey Logano at Chicago how to make adjustments on the car. Overall, things were not working out very well over there. Well, so far this year, they've had a much more complete team. They got Danny Eflin to be the crew chief this year for Harrison Burton. And I got to say this year, Harrison Burton is not going out there and competing for wins most weeks, but he's contending for top 10s on a week-by-week basis and has a really great chance and opportunity to make the playoffs. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Harrison Burton is currently in the playoffs by a good chunk, which is something I would not have predicted going in the year. Say what you want to say about him being in the Cup Series. I think he's done a really strong job in the Xfinity Series, and he had a lot of success in the Xfinity Series. We go back to a few years ago, back in 2020, Harrison was a rookie, and he won 4 races. Now, he got eliminated in the round of 12 because Talladega did not go well for him, but he did a really, really good job in Xfinity. Then 2021, he cooled off. I think we all know that Harrison got completely rushed up to the NASCAR Cup Series. So I think if he wants to stay full-time in the Xfinity Series long-term, he definitely could do that. And we also got to remember this too. Harrison Burton is still a very relatively young driver. He is only 24 years old currently at the moment. So he definitely has time to improve, grow, and develop as a race car driver. But back to the other side, this is a great opportunity for Harrison to drive for Rick Ware. Now, realistically, I don't think Harrison Burton is going to be a major factor either for the win or being up front contending. I think because the Rick Ware cars have just not been fast at all this year. Cody Ware has been the slowest car on a week-by-week basis. He's getting beat by people like Shane Van Gisbergen, getting beat by people in the field like Brad Keselowski's been abysmal this year. So I don't expect this car to be great. But I do think Harrison Burton will actually outperform Cody Ware and do way better on the speed charts than Cody Ware. I could actually see this car competing to actually beat people in the field like Brad Keselowski. I don't see that happening with Cody Ware currently at the moment. For those wondering about Cody Ware, he is going to be driving number 15 because he's not already locked in. They're putting him in the 15 car for Rick Ware. He'll be back in the 51 car next week at the Coca-Cola 600. So Cody Ware is not going anywhere. If you're worried about that, you don't really have to worry about it. But I think for Harrison, this is a great and fantastic opportunity. What does this mean long-term for Harrison's future? If Rick Ware does keep their charter in 2026, this could be a potential landing spot for Harrison Burton if he doesn't, of course, stay with AM Racing, because I think it's only a one-year deal with AM Racing currently at the moment. So he could, if he wanted to, he could come back up to the Cup Series and race for a team, like I said, like a Rick Ware. But I also think if you got the chance and opportunity to drive for a team like this team, I then would definitely take that chance and opportunity. So we're going to have to see what happens in regards to this going forward and whether Harrison makes more starts, because I have a strong feeling that you're going to see Harrison. This is not going to be the only time I think he's going to be in Cup. I do think they're going to run the 15 car at some point later this year. And I do think at tracks like Nashville, for instance, maybe some of the super speedways like Daytona. We don't know what the rest of Corey LaJoie's schedule looks like for the remainder of the year currently at the moment. But I think if I'm Rick Ware and I see between Burton and LaJoie, that is a really tough conversation at this point. But nonetheless, this is a really strong opportunity for Harrison. Realistically, like I said, I don't think he's going to be a major factor for the win or anything like that. But I think it's great that they're giving him a chance. I know some people don't think he deserved to make the playoffs, and I get that. But he deserves to be in the All-Star race because guess what? He picked up a win and earned that spot because he picked up the win at Daytona. I know Daytona's a lot of that gridlock stuff, but he got a really good push and picked up the win. So congratulations, Harrison, on locking his way into the All-Star race. This is a really great opportunity. We'll see if he can be a major factor in strong contender with Rick Ware. We'll see what he can do this weekend and see if he can have a great chance and a good opportunity to get a really strong and fantastic finish this weekend in North Wilkes Series, competing against guys like Kyle Larson, who of course will be trying to qualify for the Indy 500. Chase Elliott, if Bubba Wallace makes a show, he'll be there. SVG, if he qualifies his way in. Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, Brad Keselowski, Chris Busch are both locked in. If Ryan Preece makes it, he'll be going up against him and other people in the field. There's a lot of really great competition. We'll see how he can do this weekend at North Wilkesboro. And now we're going ahead, Javon, to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch once again. Now, we kind of talked a little bit about this on the channel earlier in the weekend, but apparently Kyle Busch talked about the opportunities he could have had to run the Indianapolis 500. Speaking to Bob, he spoke about the fact he had an opportunity in 2024 to run it, but Kyle Larson took the deal. But he actually revealed that he had not only one opportunity to run the Indy 500, but he actually had two opportunities to run the Indianapolis 500. He said this on Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. The first year he had a chance and opportunity to run the Indy 500 was in 2017. He had a sponsor that was willing to work with him. From what we understand, M&M's, which of course is a longtime sponsor with Kyle Busch for many, many years. Back in 2017, they had a really close and tight-lit relationship. They were going to sponsor Kyle Busch in the Indianapolis 500. He also, Chevrolet, was supportive. Of course, Kyle Busch was a Toyota driver, but also Toyota was behind Kyle Busch getting the chance and opportunity to run the Indy 500. And from what we understand, the original team is going to go with was Team Penske. Team Penske at the time, I think, was fielding 4 cars, and they were going to field a 4th car for the Indianapolis 500. So who denied him that opportunity to run the Indy 500? Well, you guessed it, Joe Gibbs. In recent years, Joe Gibbs has been a little more open to letting his drivers do things like dirt racing. He kind of took that privilege away in 2022, but for many, many years since Tony Stewart left the team and organization, Joe Gibbs has not been open to letting his drivers go do things unless they're in something that's very, very safe. We know IndyCar racing can be very, very dangerous, especially when you're going 225 or 230 miles an hour around the track. But at the same time, it's disappointing to hear this because seeing that Joe Gibbs rejected Kyle that opportunity, especially when Kyle Busch was at his prime, that is really unfortunate because I think Kyle Busch in 2017, he was very, very good. We all remember how strong he was in the NASCAR Cup Series. That time, from 2015 to 2019, that was prime Kyle Busch. 2015, he won the Cup Series championship that year, and won 5 races. 2016, he won 4 races that year, made the championship 4. 2017, he got 5 wins, got beat by Mark Truex Jr. for that championship. 2018, picked up 8 wins that year. In 2019, won 5 races en route to winning the championship. Then he started falling off a little bit and hasn't really been as strong with the next-gen car. I think it would have been such a great opportunity. And again, it's just disappointing to hear the news that Joe Gibbs basically said that this is not happening. Again, I understand why Joe didn't want him to do because of the safety side, but I think it's disappointing that he had a deal done and he didn't get the opportunity. The other one is last year in 2024. Kyle Busch had a sponsor that was lined up to work with him for the Indy 500. From what we have heard, it sounds like Menards was going to be that sponsor that was going to work with Kyle Busch very, very closely. And we also got confirmation that McLaren was going to be the team, the Arrow McLaren team was going to be the team that Kyle was going to drive for. Now, Arrow McLaren, they are generally one of the fastest teams when it comes to Indy 500. They haven't been the fastest organization so far during the practice and qualifying sessions, but I do think they are one of the best teams in the IndyCar series. They're very strong and very, very competitive. And Richard Childress also agreed to let Kyle Busch run the Indy 500. So basically what happened? Well, Kyle Larson came along. Kyle Larson had wanted to do the opportunity to run the Indy 500. It was confirmed in 2023 because Kyle was going to have the deal done in early 2023. Basically, they told him he had to buy the car out, and they basically said, we're denying this opportunity for you, Kyle, because we're going to go with Kyle Larson. Now, let's be real and honest here. Kyle Busch is a fantastic and great driver, and I think that in 2024, Kyle Busch, however, is not as strong as 2024 or 2025 Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson has been the strongest driver in the NASCAR Cup Series since the Next Gen era began. He's picked up, I believe, 16 wins in the Next Gen era, the most of anybody in the field. He just picked up his 32nd career NASCAR Cup Series win. I do wish, though, the Arrow McLaren could have fielded another car for the Indy 500 so we could have seen Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson get the chance and opportunity to be teammates because, in my opinion, they are the two most talented guys that are in the NASCAR Cup Series still to this day, and I think both are two of the best guys who can wheel anything. I mean, Kyle Busch was really good in dirt racing in the race that he's ran in recent years, and he still has that competitive flair. But I also don't think Kyle Busch would be as strong as he would have been in 2017. I would have loved to see Kyle Busch get the chance and opportunity to drive when he was at his prime in 2017. He was only 31 or 32 years old at the time. Now Kyle Busch is turning 40 years old, and I think that window is closing. But I still think there is time for Kyle Busch to have that chance and opportunity down the road to run the Indianapolis 500. And I really hope we do get to see him do it because I want to see Kyle Busch get the opportunity to run it. But it's just disappointing to hear this, right? Because when you hear about someone like Kyle Busch, who, like I said, is one of the best drivers in NASCAR Cup history, he's one of the 10 best drivers, in my opinion, and he's the winningest driver in NASCAR competition, Kyle Busch still brings a lot to the table. When all the silly season stuff was going on, he was one of the biggest headlines here out there. And I think that everyone kind of knew there was going to be an increased chance if he went to RCR or a team in the Chevy pipeline, because you know those Chevy teams would be definitely willing to bring Kyle Busch in. But the problem is right now, you've got the limits on the amount of chassis they're in. They're basically in the 10th or 12th year at this point of the same chassis, and there's only a limited amount of chassis that the manufacturers are going to be giving out. And we don't even know what the future of the manufacturers are going to be in IndyCar. There's a lot of talk that Honda might leave at the end of next year and maybe go do something else and maybe come to NASCAR in 2027, same with like the rumors of Dodge coming in. But going back to this, it's just disappointing to hear this. Now, I definitely want to see both Kyle Busch and Larson compete against each other down the road. It sounds like this might be the last year we see Larson run the Indy 500 for the foreseeable future. So maybe if Aaron McLaren wanted to get a deal done for 2026, that could be a possibility. I think that it will all depend on the sponsorship side and what the future of Aaron McLaren is going to look like, because I believe Christian Lundgaard, Pat O'Ward, and the other drivers on the team like Nolan Siegel are under multi-year contracts currently at the moment. But it just sucks hearing this, because you want to see the best of the best go out there and compete. That's what the Indy 500 should be. And I know that Kyle Busch has said, like the 500 winning it, he says that winning the race like the Indy 500 is a race that's on his bucket list, and racing Indy 500 is also on his bucket list as well. So to hear that Joe Gibbs denied that opportunity is definitely really disappointing to hear, but it's also not the most shocking and surprising thing overall. But I'm disappointed to hear this, because I want to see Kyle Busch get the opportunity down the road to run the Indy 500. It's all, again, though, going to come down to sponsorship and funding. Maybe we see something like this come up in the next couple of years. Who knows at this particular point, but we'll see down the road if it does happen. But I hope maybe someone gives him the chance and opportunity to run the Indy 500 very soon. It's shocking that it's not the most shocking to see that Joe Gibbs denied that opportunity, though, back in 2017. So, that is going to be today's long NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. List description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. You want to see Kyle Busch try the Indy 500 again in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Harrison Burton making a start in the NASCAR Cup Series? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There's going to be a second NASCAR news video that's going to be dropping later today in a couple hours from now. Then, of course, you are going to potentially see the Truck Series race picks, but I also might move that video to later to probably Thursday, perhaps. And we're going to have the paint scheme video for both the All-Star Open and the race. And we're also going to have the Cup Series race pick for the All-Star race as well, and who I think will get from the Open. Then on Friday, we're going to have a NASCAR news video discussing over the course of the last couple days. And we might have some special content dropping really soon. Then on Saturday, we are going to have the review for the Truck Series race. We'll have reactions maybe to the heats as well, and we'll have some other reactions dropping. And then on Sunday, we're going to have the starting lineup video for the All-Star. Well, we're not going to have the starting lineup video. We're just going to have the review for the All-Star race. There's a lot of content dropping that I cannot wait for you guys to check out. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode with other people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Connor Zillage, other people like Cletus Afron, Frankie Muniz, Matt Vendetta. We'll talk about all those people really soon. Same with Tony Breidinger. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.